Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, Friday, the 24th of October 2014, this is John FARACLAS from Allaboutshipping.co.uk in London with the weekly recapitulation of the market and world politics. The Baltic Dry Index closed up 148 points last week. This is a plus, is a good sign of course, but don't count your eggs before they are hatched. This is the English saying over here. So it is an unpredictable market, and of course that volatility is expressed in this rising of the index given the volatile levels that the Cape-sized vessels and the Panamax they have reached. These 1192 points of the Baltic, which is 37 points since yesterday's Thursday's closing, at 148 points last week, 944 points, is on the other hand 1,055 points less from the closing of December 2013, which was standing, the index was standing at 2,247 points. This is 46.8% precisely a fall. And overall we had a 50% fall over these 10 months as you listen to us with the index levels. So, caution. The BCI closed up 164 points yesterday at 24.22, which on the other hand is 1,060 points up since the closing of last week at 13.62. Very volatile indeed. Indeed a volatile size. And of course the level unprecedented, 1,000 points up. The Panamax and the respective Panamax index was also up 22 points at 11.21, which was 155 points up since last week's closing at 966. Again here we can see the 1,000 points barrier broken on a plus. It's wonderful, but early days to see. On the other hand, the other two indexes that were on a slight downfall. The BSI closed down 6 points at 900, which is 23 points since last week's 923, and you know this is a size to be very careful what we're doing. The BHSI was also down 2 points at 489, and this is a further 12 points down since last week's 501. Here we have on the other hand in contrast with the Panamax that they went above the 1,000, here we go below the 500 points level. So all in all, a very volatile market, and one should not just depend on China and what Chinese import and what they don't import and what trades they are doing. It is unlikely that the market will reach by the end of the year the levels of the closing of December 2014. This is very, very important. And in no way it's very difficult to see this, and of course counting 10 months with levels of 50% down from the previous year, the worst starting it was, if you remember in January, we reiterate and we remind you this, the worst starting of the markets in the last 30 years. The wets on the other hand were a bit different. The dirty and its respective index, the Baltic Dirty Tank Index, remained unchanged at 699 from its last closing, and of course we just saw 1 point up since the previous week's 698. The cleans and the respective BCTI on the other hand closed up 9 points at 655 points, which on the other hand was down 19 points since last week's closing. The world stage, the Ebola. The Ebola is producing more victims, and this is very, very important. I think, I said, I'm not an expert on this, but the way things look, it is spreading. We have to fight it now, here and now. Ukraine, will this Sunday's election bring any change there? And the winter is approaching, and who really calls the shots? For a start, to warm up is necessary, but at what cost? Mrs. Merkel et al. Are trying hard. The end result counts though, and you know what I mean. Be ready for a very unprecedented deal. The Middle East. Too much mess in all fronts. The latest events in Sinai, Tunis and the continuous mess of the ISIS speak of itself. Let the generals, I repeat, let the generals and our Western alliance, NATO to speak of, get in and raise them down, completely smash them. Otherwise the politicians will embroil us, as normally they do, to unended wars in the region there with many victims, and this is not on. Let the generals go in, and this is the only way out. They know how to do it. Let them do it. Ottawa, in Canada, the latest shootings, not a nice thing, but anyway, the authorities there and the security forces there, they had some heroes and they saved lives. This is important. Libya, be careful in the entire area. It's very dangerous. Europe, let's come to the most powerful bloc in the world, the bloc of 750 million people, which of course has a lot of problems. And the most recent ones that continue, if I may say so, are the economic problems, and let's be on guard of this. Too many politicians and too many countries there that they want to lead, as they say, it's like too many women spoil the broth. The same applies there. Now, many politicians in Europe should be sacked. See the latest what has happened in Greece with a rainfall, and the authorities were not ready as they should have been to counter to this emergency. In the past, ladies and gentlemen, everything was to blame of the Greek junta. Later, it was the right-wing parties to blame. The famous socialists came in power, and for a little while the center-right came in power. The result is still the same. Nobody really bothered. In Attica, where nearly the 1/3 of the Greek population stands there, to look after every mayor on his own area and have their plans in order, not just political blah blah blah. So many people should be sacked, and the respective minister, he should resign. There are no excuses whatsoever. They have rocked the boat, and the continuous disastrous situation between the current government and the opposition will lead to, to worse results. So the Greeks should nicely revolt, and together with the support from the friends abroad, they should bring peacefully down this government by asking them to resign here and now. If Greece wants to see investments there, you need the right people and not the people who want to be in power just to be in power. There are peaceful means, and to this means we appeal to the Greek people and to their friends abroad, and this is very important. So, all in all, we must make sure these shameful things as a result of a rainfall do not happen. There is no excuse, and I repeat this. Now, other issues in Europe. David Cameron is really very upset for the extra 1.7 billion pounds that this country has to contribute to the coffers of the Union. So, unless we have a constitution in Europe in the way of the real federal government like the US, nothing is going to go ahead properly. So let's have a constitution, and we can start from there, and we make appropriate budgets to avoid having the North and the South, the East and the West, okay, in Europe. Okay? Now, the Far East, Hong Kong. Again, we have problems here. We have to watch it. But let me go back again to Europe. We forgot to mention these deadly substances that they went to 5 different diplomatic offices, consulates in Istanbul, and this is not very nice. So let's try to avoid these instances. This is important. We remind you now the 2 capital links events that are coming up in London. The first one on the 4th of November. It's the 4th annual CSR on shipping and offshore. And then we have the respective major event in New York, the 16th annual Greek Forum Investors event in London. Book early to avoid any disappointment. Don't miss the Intermodal 2014 at Rotterdam Ahoy on intermodalism. It's a great event which will really give you an impetus. This gives the impetus for logistics in our business. The Cadwallader's Memorial Lecture event is coming up on the 25th of November, and again, try to see if you're lucky. We hope you have booked your place there. On another tone now, on holidays and why not, to improve the touristic sort of sector of the world and of course of our site, we invite you to visit the historic city of Chester in northwest of England, next to Wales. Fantastic place to go there, and I'm sure you will like it. This is John FARACLAS from Allaboutshipping.co.uk in London on Friday the 24th of October 2014. Have a lovely weekend. Over and out.